So remember, our biggest challenge is we've had a century of overfishing in California and in most places, globally. We even hunted marine mammals by the early, 1900s. Now, in those catches, believe it or not, white sharks were part of that. So probably for 100 years, the white shark population's been depleted. In addition, marine mammals, one of the adult white shark's favorite foods, have been over-harvested to the point where many were on the verge of extinction. I never, ever imagined I would see the day where I could take any of you out any day of the week and find you a white shark along the California coast. I never thought that would be possible.
Sharks have been endangered and they continue to be. So in general, overfishing, whether it be for food purposes, whether it be for medicinal reasons, whether it be just because they're bycatch, because they were searching for something else, fishing for another type of species, but they caught a shark instead, but oh well. In the past, they've said over 100 million sharks per year are killed. That's a lot of sharks. Humans have definitely done more harm to sharks than sharks have to humans.
We live in Southern California, which has one of the most heavily populated coastlines anywhere in the world. There are 20 million people that live between Santa Barbara and San Diego within 60 miles of the coast. Didn't matter if it was a baby or an adult. You just said the word white shark, pull people out. Why? Because at the time we didn't know exactly the risk that was encountered there. Okay, if we want to know, are sharks out to get us? I can tell you emphatically the scientific answer is no. Because as you sit here, right now, a juvenile white shark is swimming right underneath the surf for a swimmer and completely ignoring them. And the way we know that is from Patrick's drone study. So by using drones for many years along the beaches, we've been able to record what white sharks are doing, record where people are in the water, who's in the water, where are they in the water in proximity to sharks, and how often are they occurring near sharks. So this is a very common thing. I think Patrick on average saw 1,200 encounters where a juvenile white shark was within 60 feet of a person.
Sharks play a very important role in the ocean in keeping it clean, for one thing. Sharks tend to be lazy animals, and they go after the sick or the injured animals rather than the healthy ones. And so it's one of the ways that diseases and sickness can be cleared of the ocean. So there's an important role. One of the things that we've noticed through a program called Global Finprint, which our volunteers have been a part of here at the aquarium, they have watched videos, over like thousands of hours of videos that have been taken from reefs around the world. And they have identified a major decline in shark populations worldwide, more than they were expecting. And they found that in some areas where there aren't sharks, the eels seem to be taking over those reefs. So it's an interesting thing to see what does happen when you don't have sharks in a population, and how will that affect the ecosystem. So we're still learning, but we do know that sharks play an important role.
So the things that we believe are happening is the reason why those young sharks come so close to the shoreline are three reasons. Number one, when moms give birth to them, they're completely on their own. They get no parental care. So the first thing we think they do is seek out a safe place. The safest place for them to be is in shallow water, and that's right off our beaches. In addition, if they're going to be there because it's safe, they're also looking for the warmest conditions. And water is warmer right along the coastline than it is a couple hundred yards offshore. There has to be sufficient food resources, and that's where stingrays come in. So the thing is, we think this is what draws these young sharks to our beaches and enables them to stay there for weeks and months at a time. The question is, why are they there and what causes them to leave? So are they there because the water's warm? And if the water gets cold, like it does in the winter, would that cause some to leave? So we wanted to answer those questions. So to do that, we get to use all these different cool tools that you'll learn about from the table just outside. So one type of transmitter we use are called spot tags. These get put on the shark's dorsal fin. Every time the fin breaks the surface, it's sending a signal to satellites in orbit, and then those satellites send me a text message saying shark number 105 popped up at this latitude, longitude, time, and date. The other type of tag we use, it's got a temperature, light, and depth sensor. It's recording those things, and then at a pre-described time and date, it pops off the shark, floats up to the surface, uploads all that data to the satellite, and then downloads it all to me in an email. So I get to see the temperature and the depth that that shark swam through, and it doesn't even answer the question, how much time did they spend off the beaches? So if I want to know that, I use this technology, which is acoustic telemetry. So instead of using radio waves, I'm using lower frequency sound waves. I can surgically implant a transmitter into that shark's body cavity, and that transmitter lasts 10 years. It has a unique ID code. Some of them have temperature and depth sensors. We know the temperature and the depth as the shark's moving through. And when that shark gets within 300 yards of one of these underwater receivers, the receiver will log the time, the date, and the ID. And the fourth type of technology we use we call them smart tags, but they're really a Fitbit for sharks. So this is a device that clamps on the shark's dorsal fin. It has a 3D accelerometer, 3D magnetometer, 3D gyroscope, so we can measure every motion the shark makes 30 times a second. It's got a temperature and depth sensor. It's got a video logger, so we can see what the shark sees. And it's got an acoustic transmitter on it, so we can follow it around from a boat. So by using all these technologies, we're now answering all those questions. So the problem is that technology doesn't respond fast enough, and it takes a month for my divers to do all that. By the way, it costs about $200,000 a year to maintain this array alone. So lifeguards go, we need data faster. And that's where we started to develop the buoys. So the buoy that you see out here and the software out here, now we have 9 of those spread along the coast. All the lifeguards are subscribers to a service. So when one of those sharks gets within 300 yards of a buoy, the buoy sends them a text alert. And they can click on that text alert, takes them to a website, and it gives them all the stats of what sharks have been detected where. The other thing is, we know that every time a bite happens, and it will continue to happen, the beaches are closed. That's a state policy. And the question is, what happens to a beach if you close it? What happens to that community? So we know that people go to that beach, the beaches are closed, they may go to another beach, which means they're taking their dollars somewhere else. So what are the economic impacts of these communities? So for the first time anywhere in the United States, these studies are being done. And they help us because then when bites occur, we can help mitigate some of these effects by better understanding. And of course, all of this information has to get out to you. It has to get out to the public. So shark shacks are our best way of doing that. All the shark research that we do is amazing, but I began to realize just how narrow-minded I was being. So I branched out. I recruited a psychologist from our own psychology department, Dr. Gabrielle Hancock, to help us do a study understanding people's perceptions of sharks.
People's perceptions of sharks are complicated. It's very easy to fear sharks, right, because they are large predators. A lot of times people have misperceptions about sharks in terms of the amount of risk that they actually pose to people. So there's the perceived risk, what people think, and then there's the real risk. And that real risk isn't zero, but it's certainly much lower than what people tend to think.
So our research is showing that most people perceive sharks from a scare standpoint. And it turns out that psychologically, people learn to fear sharks. They have no innate fear of sharks. Why? Because we didn't evolve with them.
At the Aquarium of the Pacific, our mission is to instill a sense of wonder, respect, and stewardship for the Pacific Ocean, its inhabitants, and its ecosystems. And so we believe that introducing people to sharks for what they really are is one of the most important things we can do to give people an opportunity to have an experience with sharks themselves and dispel some of the myths that people believe about sharks or some of the stereotypes that they have about sharks due to movies, media, over-sensationalized stories.
I think the thing that we wanted people to know most about sharks is they're not as dangerous as they're made out to be, right? So if they watch Discovery Channel Shark Week, or if they saw the movie Jaws, they may have the wrong impression about sharks.
And so through education, we need to correct those misperceptions and make sure people's risk assessment about sharks and their behaviors are accurate. We need to educate people about how to act when they're at the beach so that their behaviors promote not only their own safety, but also that of the sharks as well. And we need to learn how to help their conservation as much as possible, because right now humans are the greatest threat to sharks.
I think one of the most important things we can do is educate people and let them know the important role that sharks have in the ecosystem. I think letting them have an experience with sharks, that they care about these animals, that they start to care about them. And legislature that would protect sharks, learning more about how they impact their habitat and how we can protect them in their habitat, limiting catches on sharks, limiting the gear that's used, putting safer gear that might not entangle sharks as much that's being used by fishermen, and just eating sustainable seafood.
So I think the most important thing people can do to protect sharks is protect the ocean. So whether that's being careful about pollution, what gets into the ocean, what we dump down our drains, the trash that we throw into the garbage can might blow into the ocean. The other thing is be careful about what we eat. So there are lots of fish that you can buy that are caught in good, sustainable ways where sharks aren't being caught as bycatch. But there are some fisheries that are actually really bad for sharks. And knowing what you eat and how it's caught can help you protect sharks.
Through our research, the first year that we offered it, we actually surveyed over 400 people. And a large majority of them, 81% of them, said that they were highly motivated to learn more about sharks. They were also very positive in terms of supporting them. So a majority were in favor of voting to protect them and their environment if such a measure were on the ballot today. And a majority were also said that they were willing to donate funds to shark-specific charities.
It's important for them to have an experience to learn more truth about sharks so that they can overcome some of those negative stereotypes, because we know that people won't care about the animals, or they won't care about saving them if they don't care about them or they're not exposed to what they really are.